Hello Reapers, my name is Seth and this is going to be an updated tutorial of how you actually build the Ice Sage not only for U9 but also more importantly for Ultra Shadow Towers, because believe it or not, the Ice Sage is actually the ultimate. He is the best, or she I guess if you want to genderize these characters. This character is actually the strongest tank in the entire game as far as Shadow Tower Titan bosses are concerned. I'll explain why in a minute, but as far as U9 building the character is going to be very simple. It's just going to be standard damage per second or DPS build. So you're going to be building your character. I don't have ideal stats or anything on my Ice Sage, just to let you know, but you can actually build your Ice Sage for crit damage second stat on all of your gear if you can, magic damage, crit hit, all of that stuff, you know, all the usual things. Energy regen I have on my staff because I have my Ice Sage actually built for Ultra Towers, but when you're just doing normal dungeon grinding and stuff like that, if you actually build up your character strong enough, you're going to be able to just kill everything like no problem. And attack speed is not going to end up being a stat that you need on the Ice Sage regardless of how you end up, whether you end up having your class trim ability or not, because attack speed does not govern the Ice Sage's right click attack, or in console versions it's going to be left trigger, right? But that is going to end up being your primary source of damage. You're not going to end up using your ultimate. You're barely going to end up using your shield outside of Shadow Towers. And when you're out in dungeons and stuff like that, you're going to be able to beat bosses in like a couple hits with U9, like proper U9 stats and stuff like that, right? So again, all you're going to want to focus on for your gems is you're just going to want to go for crit damage, magic damage, and crit hit. Not necessarily in that order, but you know, you kind of try to prioritize getting at least 100,000 magic damage before you end up working towards your crit damage and crit hit. Now, there are going to be other characters that are going to outshine the Ice Sage as far as damage is concerned, but I know that some people out there do want to actually main the Ice Sage regardless. Now, as far as gems are concerned, Cubic Curtain is a must. That's going to be one of the all-time best abilities that you can end up getting on a gem for the Ice Sage, more notably for Ultra Towers. The other abilities don't really matter so much as far as like farming and stuff like that is concerned, outside of the fact that you want to have the gems that of course put more damage output. So like Pyro Disc is going to end up giving you more movement speed, and because of the fact that you don't need the attack speed, you can actually rock a movement speed build. And the Ice Sage, I would say, is one of, if not the third fastest character in the entire game when compared with the Neon Ninja and the Lunar Lancer. Now, as far as Ultra Towers are concerned, this is where the Ice Sage totally shines, most of all because of your #1 ability. So as you have this #1 barrier around us, you're pretty much going to end up negating one attack from a Titan boss, right? So the ability itself says that the Ice Sage's basic attack chills enemies, or no, that's not the Ice Sage's basic attack. I'm looking for the #1 ability right here, the Frozen Ward. Increases movement speed, damage, and attack speed of the Ice Sage. Any damaging attack that would do more than 10% of the Ice Sage's maximum health is absorbed, breaking the Frozen Ward. So pretty much everything in the entire game is going to end up guaranteed doing more than 10% damage. So it's just going to end up absorbing the shield, and thus the shield is going to end up taking all of the damage rather than your character taking the damage. Now, this is where Cubic Curtain comes into play, because the ultimate Shadow Tower boss in the entire game is not actually Daughter of the Moon, it's the Dreadnought. And the Dreadnought is one of the only strong enemies in the game that you can't actually solo, no matter how strong you actually get your characters. But the Ice Sage can. The Ice Sage is one, if not the only class in the entire game that can not only solo Ultra Dread, but it is going to end up being almost a requirement unless you have somewhere around maybe 4 to 5 million damage per second with your whole group on the Dreadnought. You're going to need an Ice Sage, because otherwise you're not going to kill the boss fast enough in order to actually have everybody out tank its attack. Because what the Dreadnought's going to end up doing is he's going to shoot his projectile, a laser that he's just going to one-shot every character in the game, so long as the characters are built properly and are all themed towards damage per second, because there's no point in tanking with any other characters other than the Ice Sage. Now, this is where the Ice Sage comes into play with his #1 ability, negating that laser, and if you have energy regen on your staff, you're going to generate enough energy to cast your shield again before the boss has time to shoot another laser, thus ultimately making you invincible against the Dreadnought, so long as you end up, you know, dodging, and there's a little bit more player skill involved than the previous early versions of the Tomb Raiser build, because the Tomb Raiser, you pretty much used a combination of flash to ultimately make your character absolutely invincible. the Ice Sage can still die. And that's where Cubic Curtain comes in, because what Cubic Curtain's gonna do is if you end up for any time messing up your timing, or maybe you end up jumping in the fire of the Dreadnought or something like that, Cubic Curtain's gonna kick into effect, give you a few seconds of brief invulnerability, and also going to negate the damage from whatever attack ended up hitting you, and your barrier is going to actually remain unharmed. So technically speaking, you're going to end up having twice the chances to actually recovering your mental state of fighting the boss, just because of how long it can end up actually taking to fight that thing, and you're going to be able to, you know, get back in the rhythm of things and get your ultimate ability or your shield back up, right? Now, it's important to note that your right-click attack, when you have your Class Gem ability, does actually cause a slowdown to most enemies, but most enemies are going to end up being dead before you can actually see this effect. Bosses, however, Shadow Tower bosses are going to see the slowdown, and you're also going to notice that it stacks. So you can actually keep spamming your right-click attack on any of the Shadow Tower Titan bosses, and eventually you're going to have the slowdown effect stacked on them so much that they can't move. Straight up, they won't be able to move. Now, this doesn't really matter so much with the Dreadnought, because the Dreadnought still has a projectile. It's going to shoot across the map, it's going to jump into the air, it's going to shoot nukes, it's going to throw fire everywhere. You know, you still got to move around with that boss no matter what. But it's important to know that an Ice Sage will make Daughter of the Moon an absolute joke, because with an Ice Sage you can actually keep spamming your right click attack over and over and over again, get Daughter of the Moon completely stuck where she's just sitting there kind of moonwalking on the air, and unless she actually has her gun, she's not going to be able to hit anyone in your group outside of melee characters, in which case, you know, why are you even taking melee characters into the Shadow Tower? Because since the Eclipse update, they became absolutely useless. Now, that said, everybody, I just wanted to get that out of the way and let you know that if you're trying to build the Ice Sage as far as tanking is concerned, honestly speaking, you don't need more than 1 mil health, or maybe 2 mil health. Ultimately, you want to have enough health that you can at least take one hit from the Dreadnought's laser and it doesn't one-shot you. I'm not exactly sure on the numbers of what you need. It's like 2 to 3 mil health or something like that. I obviously have 8 mil just for the sake of I've put all of my health gems on my Ice Sage anyways, but it's not like you actually need to be super duper tanky in order to actually beat the boss. It just gives you that much more of a cushion to react to actually putting your shield up and stuff like that, right? And then otherwise, the rest of the gear is not really that important. You can see I even have a stability ring, and it's just, I've got trash on my Ice Sage because of the fact that I've built it towards being a tank, which means you just build it towards that survivability, and attack speed doesn't matter. I would like to have more movement speed, but it doesn't matter so much because you're going to end up moving around just fine when you're actually fighting Titan bosses and stuff. Now, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to put an updated tutorial out talking about the Ice Sage, talking about how you actually build this character, because I do have old tutorials talking about U9 and Ultra Towers for all the characters, and only a couple of them have actually seen a big difference since recent updates, and so you're probably going to see over the next couple days me putting out like updates accordingly to each of the characters that have actually seen an impact from that. But otherwise, the Ice Sage is going to end up being the biggest one. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Very much appreciate it. Sayonara and stay epic.